Today, people are eager to explore space, forgetting that they have not studied the Earth, because 70% of its surface is covered with water, rivers, seas and oceans, but only 5% of the total mass has been explored. Imagine, only 5%. The remaining 95% is still dark and uncharted territory. What secrets may lurk in this vast expanse? Many ancient civilizations have given us at least one answer. Through eras and cultures separated by thousands of kilometers, there are stories of great cities that then sank to the bottom of the oceans. For years, these stories were considered little more than legends, until archaeologists in the modern era began to discover ancient ruins submerged underwater around the world. A natural question arises: can these ruins be evidence of the existence of advanced prehistoric civilizations? Or maybe they are evidence of something else, not from this world? This is exactly what today's video is about. About 15 years ago, writer Scott Waring heard a story from some US soldiers on a submarine who walked into a bar in Cuba. They chatted about an ancient underwater city they had found off the coast of Cuba. They said it had hundreds of buildings and was in incredibly excellent condition. They also said that they saw many pyramids in it. These were the words of the famous writer and YouTube channel author Scott Waring in mid-2020. He claimed to use Google Maps to scour the ocean floor for anomalies. By the way, he found several pyramids underwater off the coast of Cuba in the Caribbean Sea, exactly in the place that the military was talking about. As expected, Waring was called a conspiracy theorist. But those who hid the information did not take into account one detail. This was discussed earlier. In 2001, the Cuban government launched a project to search for shipwrecks left over from the Spanish colonial era. By some estimates, these ships were carrying billions of dollars in gold bars. And this organization was engaged in the delivery of gold from sunken ships. This is a Canadian company led by marine biologist Pauline Saltsk and her husband Paul Weinswag. Using the latest sonar equipment, they scanned the ocean floor for irregularities. Suddenly, their equipment picked up on something that frightened them. There, at a depth of an incredible 650 meters below the surface, there is a whole series of symmetrical and geometrically regular stone structures that stand out against the barren terrain of the ocean floor. In a short time, a remotely controlled car equipped with a camera was sent there for further research. What they found is amazing. According to Zalski, this is amazing. What they saw in their high-resolution sonar images were endless rolling plains of white sand, and in the middle of this beautiful white sand stood large-scale man-made architectural projects. It feels like you're flying over an airplane over an urban area. You see highways, tunnels, and buildings. Weinswag added that some structures of the complex can be up to 400 meters wide and up to 40 meters high. They have very characteristic shapes and an unnatural symmetrical pattern. Nature definitely could not have created this. Of course, this is a mystery that requires further investigation. But soon after the discovery, the Cuban government unexpectedly interrupted all research in this area. Remarkably, stories about the discovery of this city have disappeared from the mainstream media. Well, after that, the whole story disappeared from the collective memory, as if it had never happened, because no one remembered it. Until Scott Waring's statement in 2020. Interestingly, this is not the first time that the story of an underwater city off the coast of Cuba has been told. In 1954, Lester Hemingway was traveling from the United States to Cuba to visit his brother, the famous American writer Ernest Hemingway. Then he noticed something strange in the window of the plane. As reported by the media, he saw a section of stone ruins with an area of several square meters submerged underwater under him. These structures were white, as if they were made of marble. It is known that Ernest Hemingway spent a lot of time not only in Cuba, but also on the tiny island of Bimini. It was the place where Hemingway created his seminal works, including The Old Man and the Sea. In 1968, 7 years after Hemingway's death, a team led by underwater archaeologist Joseph Mason Valentine discovered a patch of limestone blocks submerged in the ocean off the coast of Bimini. It looked like an asphalt road that looked too perfect for the landscape created by nature. The discovery became known as the Bimini Road. It seems that they have discovered the flooded ruins of an ancient city. But if so, could it really be true? Could ancient cities before the historical past lie deep in ocean waters? If so, what can these forgotten cities tell us about human history? The dialogues of the ancient Greek philosopher Plato tell the story of the lost continent of Atlantis. According to Plato, Atlantis was an advanced island civilization that existed many centuries before the ancient Greeks. Its continent was an island, larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined. There were strong earthquakes and floods. Both in one day and in one night, the island of Atlantis disappeared in the depths of the sea. In 1882, U.S. Congressman Ignatius Donnelly published a work called The Antediluvian World. He assumed that Atlantis was not only real, but that it was part of the ancient world. According to Donnelly, Atlantis inspired Greek, African, Indian, Scandinavian, and Mesoamerican cultures. Donnelly is credited with his work as the beginning of the modern search for Atlantis. In 2013, a Portuguese fisherman named Diocletiano Silva was fishing between the islands of São Miguel and Terceira, 1,500 kilometers west of Portugal's capital, Lisbon, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. As his sonar system scanned the water, he found something that shocked him. There, right under his boat, it looked like a perfect pyramid about 60 meters high on the ocean floor. The top is directed to the north, as in the pyramids of Giza in Egypt. Incredibly, in the face of such a potentially important discovery, the Portuguese Navy rejected Silova's statement. All further investigations were discontinued. Then, in 2016, a new and even stranger underwater discovery caught everyone's attention. 72 kilometers off the coast of Mexico in the Gulf of California, Google Maps seemed to reveal a huge area of straight lines and huge outlines reminiscent of the mysterious Nazca lines in Peru. And at the end of 2016, NASA's Ice Bridge took photos using remote sensing to create a 3D image, when the probe was submerged under a layer of ice 2 kilometers thick in an area covering the continents of the Arctic and Antarctica. The pictures were also surprising. They noticed the remains of a settlement under the ice, unknown land masses. Obviously, the mysterious ruins hidden in the ice of Antarctica may soon provide answers to many questions. And it is clear that the ruins next to Cuba, Bimini, Mexico and Portugal cannot be just one Atlantis. After all, this is not the only ancient country that sank. Auguste Laplanjon dedicated his life to the study of the ancient Mayan culture in the Yucatan Peninsula, in what is now Mexico. He came across a series of ancient inscriptions, and he claimed to have successfully translated them. Many people doubt Laplanjon's translation, and the story would not have been continued if it had not been for a man named James Churchward, who advanced in the study of this topic in the 1930s. At that time, he was a British soldier in India, one of the colonists. He confirmed that he was a friend of a high-ranking Indian priest there, who presented him with a collection of ancient clay tablets. They were written in an ancient language. Hence, Churchward asked the priest to teach him the language so that he could read the notes himself. After a while, He actually read them, and they reported on an ancient lost continent in the Pacific Ocean. In 1986, Japanese diver Kiichiro Arataki was enjoying his favorite hobby, exploring the seabed off the coast of Japan. On that day, Arataki was snorkeling around Unagani Island. About 100 kilometers east of Taiwan, he encountered something he couldn't believe. Below it were the ruins of a sunken city. There were castles, roads, ruins, a pyramid, and even a semblance of a stadium. A group of scientists led by Masaki Kimura rushed here immediately. Then, in the years that followed, Kimura identified several structures at the site. Surprisingly, at a distance of about 500 kilometers, additional structures were found in the ocean. At both sites, he and his team observed walls built at right angles, as well as hexagonal columns and even an underwater road. All of them demonstrate incredible consistency and level of builders. Some have expressed doubt that what Kimura found is not a ruin, but is actually just a natural formation. According to his own words, it is very difficult to explain the origin of these structures naturally, and all because of the huge amount of evidence of man-made objects. And the question arises, are these really the outskirts of the lost continent called Mu? More importantly, if the ancient stories of Omu and Atlantis are true, how will that change our understanding of human history? Why do official sources often hide underwater discoveries? After all, these ruins of ancient civilizations prove that the history of mankind is completely different. What do you think? Your opinion and write in the comments. Thanks for watching, and if you liked the video, then click thumbs up. And if you're new, then click the subscribe button and then the bell next to it so you don't miss notifications about new releases. And most importantly, subscribe to our channel for much more interesting materials.